The massive space station hung in the darkness like a metal city. Its lights twinkled against the black sky around the planet Kepler 442b. Inside the station's grand meeting hall, hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows of seats that rose up like stairs. Each seat was made for a different type of creature. Some aliens were tall and thin. Others were short and round. Some had fur. Others had scales. And a few looked like they were made of crystal. At the front of the hall stood Ambassador Zethkari. He was tall, with blue skin and 4 arms. His people, the Etherians, had been part of the Galactic Council for over 5,000 years. Today he had good news to share. My fellow council members, Zethkari said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. We have found another species ready for integration protocols. A gentle murmur went through the crowd. Integration was always good news. It meant another species would join their peaceful galaxy. It meant more friends, more trade, and more knowledge to share. The species calls itself human, Zethkari continued. They live on a planet they call Earth, in the outer edge of Spiral Arm 7. Our scouts report they have developed spaceflight and nuclear technology. They have also achieved basic planetary government. By all our measures, they are ready. An alien with 6 eyes raised one of her tentacles. What do we know about their nature, Ambassador? They appear to be a warrior species that has recently achieved peace. They have spent much of their history fighting each other, but now work together. They show creativity, curiosity, and strong social bonds. Very typical for species at this development stage. Another voice spoke up from the crowd. How large is their population? Approximately 8 billion individuals across their homeworld, with small colonies on 2 nearby planets and several space stations. This was normal too. Most species were ready for integration when they reached this size and had started to spread to other worlds. Excellent, said Chancellor Mordun from his high seat at the front. The Chancellor was ancient, even by galactic standards. His species had been part of the Council for over 20,000 years. Begin standard integration protocols. Send the first contact team. 3 weeks later, a small fleet of Council ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. The ships were beautiful, made of white metal that seemed to glow with its own light. They sent friendly messages in hundreds of languages, using translation programs that had worked with every species they had ever met. The humans responded quickly. They sent messages back and guided the alien ships to their homeworld. The first meeting was set to happen on a space station that orbited Earth. Admiral Sarah Chen walked through the corridors of the space station toward the meeting room. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and calm brown eyes. She had been chosen to speak for all of humanity because she was smart, patient, and good at making hard decisions. The meeting room was large and round, with a big table in the center. The alien delegation sat on one side. There were 5 of them, each from a different species. They looked strange but friendly. Their leader, a being with blue skin and 4 arms, smiled as Admiral Chen entered. Greetings, Admiral Chen, said Ambassador Zethkari through a small device that translated his words. I am Ambassador Zethkari, of the Etherian Consortium. We represent the Galactic Council, a peaceful alliance of over 800 species. Admiral Chen sat down across from them. Welcome to Earth space. We are honored by your visit. The honor is ours, Zethkari said. We come to offer your species something wonderful. We call it integration into the galactic community. He pressed a button, and images appeared in the air above the table. The images showed amazing things. Cities that floated in space. Ships that could travel between stars in days instead of years. Planets that had been turned into gardens. Technology that could heal any disease and feed any population. This is what membership in the Galactic Council offers, Zethkari explained. Advanced technology beyond your current understanding. Trade partnerships that will bring wealth to every human world. Knowledge gathered from hundreds of different civilizations. And a voice in decisions that affect the entire galaxy. Admiral Chen studied the images carefully. Everything looked incredible. It was more than humanity had ever dreamed of. What would be required of us? She asked. The requirements are simple and reasonable, said another alien, one that looked like a large insect with jeweled eyes. Population growth must be managed to prevent resource depletion, industrial output must be regulated to prevent environmental damage, and military forces must be reduced to maintain galactic peace. Every species follows these guidelines, added a third alien that looked like it was made of living rock. They ensure that all member species can grow and prosper together without conflict. Zethkari leaned forward. Every species that has been offered integration has accepted within days of first contact. The benefits are clear, and the requirements are minimal. We simply ask that you trust in 50,000 years of successful galactic cooperation. Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. She looked at each of the aliens, then at the amazing images still floating above the table. Finally, she spoke. "We appreciate this generous offer," she said slowly. "We are honored that you think we are ready to join such an advanced civilization." The aliens smiled and relaxed. This was going exactly as it always did. However, Admiral Chen continued, "We must decline." The silence in the room was complete. The aliens stared at her with expressions of shock and confusion. In the thousands of years they had been offering integration, no species had ever said no. "I'm sorry," stammered Zethkari. "Did our translation device malfunction? Did you say you decline?" "That is correct," Admiral Chen said calmly. "We decline your offer of integration." But that's impossible," said the insect-like alien. "Every species accepts. The benefits are obvious. The technology alone could solve every problem your species faces." "We understand the benefits," Admiral Chen replied. "Our answer remains the same. We decline." The rock-like alien leaned forward. "Perhaps you need time to consider? We could return in a few weeks after you have discussed this with your leaders." "We have already discussed this with our leaders. Our answer will not change." Zethkari's four hands gestured in confusion. "But why?" "We offer you everything a developing species could want. Peace, prosperity, technology, knowledge. What more could you desire?" Admiral Chen stood up from her chair. "We appreciate your time and your offer. But humanity's answer is final. We decline integration into the Galactic Council." She walked toward the door, then stopped and turned back. "You are welcome to visit our space as friends and trading partners, but we will remain independent." After she left, the 5 aliens sat in stunned silence. In 50,000 years of galactic history, nothing like this had ever happened before. 3 months had passed since the humans said no. 3 long, confusing months that left the Galactic Council more puzzled each day. Ambassador Zethkari stood before the Council Assembly once again. But this time, his blue skin looked pale, and his forearms moved nervously as he spoke. "Honored members," he began, "I must report another failure. Our diplomatic team returned from their 5th visit to Earth yesterday. The human response remains unchanged." A wave of whispers rolled through the Great Hall. Species that had never questioned anything were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. "What exactly did they say this time?" asked Councillor Vextar, a large creature covered in green scales. "The same as always," Zethkari replied. "Admiral Chen met with our team for exactly 15 minutes. She listened to our new proposals politely. She asked no questions. Then she said, 'We decline.' Nothing more." Chancellor Mordoon leaned forward in his ancient chair. His old eyes looked troubled. "Did you try the cultural exchange program? Most species are interested in sharing knowledge with other civilizations. We offered them access to the great libraries of Arcturus Prime, art galleries containing works from 300 different species, music that could make their spirits soar. They said, 'We decline.'" "What about the medical technology?" called out a voice from the back. "We could cure every disease they have. They declined that too." "The terraforming equipment to make new worlds?" "Declined." "Even the star maps showing safe travel routes through the galaxy?" "Declined." The hall fell silent. Every species in galactic history had wanted at least one of these things. Usually, they wanted all of them. In the back of the hall, a small alien with purple skin raised a thin arm. "Perhaps they don't understand what they're refusing?" Maybe they need better explanations? Af. Zethkari shook his head. Our translation systems are perfect. We've checked them dozens of times. We've sent linguists, scientists, and cultural experts. The humans understand exactly what we're offering. They simply don't want it. But that's impossible, said Counselor Thex, her voice high with confusion. No species has ever refused integration. It goes against every pattern we've seen in 50,000 years of contact. General Korath stood up slowly. He was a massive alien with thick gray skin and small red eyes. His people, the hegemony, were one of the few species that still maintained a large military force within Council guidelines. Perhaps we're being too polite, he said in a deep voice that rumbled through the hall. Maybe the humans don't understand the seriousness of our offer. They might think they can just ignore us. What are you suggesting? Asked Chancellor Mordun. A demonstration. We position a fleet at the edge of their solar system. Nothing threatening, just a show of our capabilities. When they see our technology and our numbers, they'll realize that cooperation is the wise choice. Many council members nodded. It made sense. Surely the humans would be more reasonable once they understood the full power of the galactic community. Very well, said the Chancellor. General Korath, prepare a demonstration fleet. 500 ships should be sufficient. 2 weeks later, the Council fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. The ships were magnificent, ranging from small scouts, no bigger than Earth's fighter jets, to massive carriers that could house entire cities. They arranged themselves in perfect formation and waited. The human response came within hours. Admiral Chen's face appeared on the communication screens of every Council ship. She looked as calm as ever. Council fleet, she said simply. You are in violation of Earth territorial space. Please withdraw to beyond the asteroid belt. General Korath himself answered from his flagship. Admiral Chen, we are here for a peaceful demonstration. We simply want your people to see what they could be part of. We see you clearly, she replied. We're not impressed. Please withdraw. Admiral, you have 500 of the most advanced ships in the galaxy at your doorstep. Surely you recognize the benefits we offer? For the first time in 3 months of contact, Admiral Chen smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. General, you have 500 ships. We have more. That's when the Council sensors picked up something impossible. Ships were emerging from behind Earth's moon. Then more ships appeared from the asteroid belt. Still more came from the outer planets. The human ships didn't look like anything in the Council's databases. They were sleek and black, with designs that seemed to bend light around them. And there were a lot of them. More than a lot. There were thousands. Admiral, General Korath said, his voice no longer confident. Our records show your species has only achieved basic spaceflight. Where did these ships come from? We've been busy, Admiral Chen replied. That's when the long-range sensors started picking up signals from beyond Earth's solar system. Signals that shouldn't exist. General, called out one of his officers. We're detecting artificial structures in the Wolf 359 system. That's impossible. Our surveys show that system is empty. Not anymore, sir. I'm reading massive industrial installations and what looks like a military base. More reports flooded in. The Proxima Centauri system had human colonies. So did systems around Vega, Altair, and dozens of other nearby stars. Each colony was heavily defended and showed signs of rapid development. Admiral Chen, General Korath said slowly, how long have your people been spreading through the galaxy? Long enough, she answered. But our scouts have been watching your system for years. We never detected any ships leaving Earth. Your scouts aren't as good as you think. General Korath stared at the tactical display showing hundreds of human ships surrounding his fleet. His own ships were advanced, but these human vessels were giving off energy readings that shouldn't be possible for such a young species. What do you want from us? He asked. We want you to leave us alone, Admiral Chen said. We want you to stop sending delegations to our space. We want you to forget you ever found us. The Council doesn't work that way. We can't just ignore a species in our territory. Then you have a problem, Admiral Chen said. Because we're not going anywhere, and we're not joining your Council. The communication ended, leaving General Korath staring at a black screen. Back at the council station, emergency sessions were called. For the first time in thousands of years, the council faced a crisis they didn't know how to solve. How did they advance so quickly? Demanded Councillor Vextar. Where did they get that technology? Asked another voice. More importantly, said Chancellor Mordun, his voice heavy with worry, if the humans can spread through space without us noticing, what else don't we know about our own galaxy? 8. Reports were flooding in from across council space. Other species were asking questions they'd never asked before. Why hadn't they ever seen these human colonies? Why were council sensors so easily fooled? And most dangerously of all, some species were beginning to wonder if maybe the humans had the right idea about staying independent. Chancellor, said General Korath over the communication system from his flagship, we need to make a decision. Do we force the humans to comply? Or do we let them set a precedent that could destroy everything we've built? The old Chancellor looked around the assembly hall at hundreds of species that had never faced a real problem in their entire existence. For 50,000 years, the galaxy had been peaceful, ordered, and predictable. Now one small species was threatening to change everything. Withdraw the fleet, General, he said finally. We need time to think. As the council ships pulled back from Earth's space, Admiral Chen watched from her command center. Around her, human officers monitored the alien fleet's retreat. They'll be back, said one of her advisors. I know, she replied. Next time, they won't be nearly so polite. She turned to look at a star chart showing the human colonies scattered across nearby space. Each one was a secret the council couldn't be allowed to discover. Each one held technology that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. But more than that, each colony was evidence of something the council could never understand. Sometimes the greatest gift you could give someone was to refuse their offer of help. The months that followed General Korath's retreat were the most difficult the Galactic Council had faced in centuries. What started as confusion about one stubborn species had grown into something much worse. Chancellor Mordun sat in his private office, reading reports that made his ancient bones ache with worry. The problems were spreading like a disease through the galaxy. Chancellor, said his aide, a young Etherian named Korth, the Rigel system has sent another message. They want to review their integration protocols. This was the 15th species to make such a request in the past month. The Regalians had been council members for over 3,000 years. They had never questioned anything before. What exactly are they asking? Mordun said, though he already knew the answer. They want to know why they need permission to increase their population. They're asking why they can't build military ships above Class 3 designation. They want to know who decided these rules were necessary. The Chancellor rubbed his temples. The Regalians weren't the only ones asking these questions. Species across the galaxy were beginning to wonder why they needed the Council's permission for so many things. The human refusal had planted seeds of doubt that were growing in places no one expected. Tell them we'll schedule a review meeting next month, Mordun said. Maybe by then we'll have some answers. But privately, he wasn't sure answers existed. The integration protocols had been in place for so long that no one remembered why they were created. They just were. They had always been. Every species followed them, because every other species followed them, until now. A chime sounded at his door. Enter, he called. General Korath walked in, his massive frame barely fitting through the doorway. Behind him came 3 other military commanders from different species. All of them looked grim. Chancellor, Korath said, we need to talk about the human situation. What about it? It's getting worse. Our intelligence networks are reporting strange activity in over 40 systems now. The humans aren't just building colonies. They're building something else. Mordun leaned forward. What kind of something else? Weapons platforms. Industrial complexes that could supply entire fleets. Training facilities. And they're not doing it alone. What do you mean? Commander Yex Till, a spider-like creature with 8 arms, stepped forward. We've detected non-human technology signatures mixed with their own. Old technology. Really old. How old? Preliminary analysis suggests it might be predecessor technology. The room went silent. The predecessors were the stuff of legends. an ancient civilization that had vanished from the galaxy over 2 million years ago. All that remained of them were ruins on dead worlds and fragments of technology that no one understood. That's impossible, Mordun said. Predecessor sites have been studied for thousands of years. If there was anything useful left, we would have found it. Not necessarily, said General Korath. What if the humans found something we missed? What if they discovered sites we never knew existed? Commander Zexora, a tall reptilian with blue scales, spoke up. There's more, Chancellor. We've been analyzing the energy signatures from human ships. Some of their technology is more advanced than ours. Significantly more advanced. Mordoun felt something cold settle in his stomach. How is that possible? They've only had spaceflight for a few decades. We don't know, Korath admitted. But Chancellor, this situation is beyond anything we've ever faced. If the humans have access to predecessor technology, if they're spreading through the galaxy faster than we can track, and if other species start following their example. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood. The careful order that had kept the galaxy peaceful for 50,000 years could collapse. What do you recommend? Mordun asked. Forced integration, Korath said bluntly. We assemble the largest fleet in Council history and give the humans a choice. Join willingly, or be made to join. The Chancellor stared at him. Forced integration hasn't been used in over 800 years, because it hasn't been needed. Every species has been reasonable. The humans are not reasonable. The protocols still exist, added Commander Yex Till. If a species poses a threat to galactic stability, the Council has the right to act. Mordoun stood up and walked to the large window that showed the stars beyond the station. Somewhere out there, on thousands of worlds, billions of beings lived in peace because of the Council's work. That peace was worth protecting. How large a fleet would you need? He asked. 10,000 ships, Korath said immediately. Maybe 15,000. We need to overwhelm their defenses completely. And if they resist, then we make it clear that resistance is pointless. A few destroyed human colonies would show them we're serious. The Chancellor closed his eyes. The idea of destroying colonies, of killing innocent civilians, made him sick. But if it prevented a galaxy-wide war, before we make any decisions, he said, I want to know more about this predecessor connection. If the humans have access to ancient technology, we need to understand what we're dealing with. I can have intelligence teams investigate, said Commander Zexora. Do it, and be discreet. If the humans are hiding something, I don't want them to know we're looking. The military commanders left, but General Korath stayed behind. Chancellor, he said quietly, there's something else. Something I didn't want to mention in front of the others. What? Our deep space monitoring stations have been picking up strange signals for the past few weeks. Very faint, very distant. But the pattern analysis suggests they might be artificial. From where? Outside the galaxy. From the void between galaxies. Mordoun felt his blood run cold. Are you suggesting? I don't know what I'm suggesting, but the signals started appearing right around the time the human situation began. It might be coincidence, but you don't believe in coincidences. No, Chancellor, I don't. After Korath left, Mordoun sat alone in his office for hours. He pulled up old files, ancient records that few people ever bothered to read anymore. Stories about the predecessors, legends about why they vanished. Most of the stories were obviously myths. Tales of gods and monsters, of civilizations that could move stars and reshape reality. But buried in the myths were fragments that felt different. References to something called the Gardeners. Warnings about entities that came from the dark space between galaxies. One fragment, found on a dead world near the galactic core, had always puzzled scholars. Beware the harvest time. Beware those who tend the garden of minds. They come when the fruit is ripe, when consciousness reaches its peak. The gardeners take what they have grown and leave only empty soil behind. For millions of years, scholars had debated what it meant. Most thought it was religious poetry, metaphors for death and rebirth. But as Mordoun read it now, with strange signals coming from outside the galaxy, and humans refusing to join the council. The words felt different. They felt like a warning. His door chimed again. "Enter," he called. Commander Zexora rushed in, her blue scales pale with excitement and fear. "Chancellor, we've found something. Our intelligence team broke into human computer networks on one of their outer colonies." "What did you find?" "Files, Chancellor. Thousands of files about something they call Project Sanctuary. And images. Lots of images." She activated a holographic display. Pictures filled the air above Mordun's desk. Pictures of massive ruins on Mars. Pictures of technology that looked like nothing he'd ever seen. Pictures of star maps showing things that shouldn't exist. And pictures of warnings, carved in stone in a dozen different ancient languages. All saying the same thing. The gardeners return every 2 million years. The harvest comes soon. Prepare, hide, fight. "Chancellor," Zexora said softly, "I don't think the humans are refusing integration because they're stubborn. I think they're trying to protect us from something we don't understand." And Mordun stared at the images floating before him. After 50,000 years of peace, of order, of everything working perfectly, the universe was about to become dangerous again, and humanity, the species that everyone thought was backward and primitive, might be the only ones who knew what was coming. The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, sent through channels so old that most council members had forgotten they existed. It was addressed not to Chancellor Mordun or the General Assembly, but to something called the Three Who Remain. Admiral Sarah Chen's face appeared on screens throughout the council station, but her words were heard by only a handful of the oldest, most senior members. "To the founding races of the Galactic Council," she said, "humanity formally requests an audience. We have information that concerns the survival of every conscious being in this galaxy. We know you still exist. We know you still watch. We need to speak with you directly." Chancellor Mordun stared at the message in shock. The founding races had been gone for over 30,000 years. They were legends now, stories told about the ancient beings who had first brought peace to the galaxy before transcending to a higher form of existence. "This is impossible," whispered Councillor Vextar. "The founders are gone. Everyone knows that." But as they watched, something unprecedented happened. The message was answered. 3 voices spoke in perfect unison, using communication frequencies that hadn't been active for millennia. The voices were old beyond measure, tired in a way that seemed to echo from the depths of time itself. "Admiral Chen of the human species, we acknowledge your request. We will meet." The meeting was set for a place that didn't officially exist, deep beneath the council station, in chambers that predated the current structure by thousands of years. Admiral Chen arrived alone, as requested, guided by maintenance shafts that led down, always down, into the heart of the ancient station. The chamber she found was vast and dark, lit only by the soft glow of 3 crystalline structures that rose from the floor like frozen trees. Each crystal was the size of a small building, and within each one, something moved, patterns of light that shifted and swirled, like captured thoughts. "Admiral Chen," the voices spoke from the crystals, still in perfect unison. "You seek truth. Are you prepared for the weight of it?" Chen stood in the center of the chamber, looking up at the glowing crystals. She had known this moment would come eventually. Her species had prepared for it since they first discovered the ruins on Mars. "We are," she said simply. "Then know this, child of Earth. The Galactic Council you have refused to join is not what it appears to be. It never was." The chamber filled with images, holographic displays that showed the history of the galaxy from the beginning. Chen saw the rise of the first civilizations, the development of space travel, the first contacts between species. 50,000 years ago, the voices continued. "We were like you. 3 young species who had just learned to travel between the stars. We met other species, formed alliances, shared knowledge. The images changed, showing vast cities, incredible technology, art, and music from dozens of different worlds. But we were not alone in the universe. In the dark spaces between galaxies, older things than we could imagine were watching, waiting. New images appeared. Ships, unlike anything in Council records, made of materials that seemed to bend reality around them. Beings of impossible size and form, traveling through the void between galaxies. They called themselves many names, but we knew them as the Harvesters. They moved through the universe like farmers through a field, cultivating what they needed and taking it when it was ripe. What did they harvest? Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Consciousness itself. The spark of awareness that makes a being truly alive. They had learned to extract it, to store it, to use it for purposes we could never understand. To them, we were not people, we were crops. The images showed the horror of the harvest. Entire worlds going silent. Billions of beings continuing to live and work, but no longer truly aware, no longer truly alive. The harvesters had perfected their technique over millions of years. They would arrive at a galaxy, identify the most promising species, and guide their development. They would help them form peaceful alliances, share technology, reduce conflict. They would create the perfect conditions for consciousness to grow and flourish. Chen felt sick as understanding dawned. The integration protocols. Yes. Population controls to ensure optimal development. Resource management to prevent waste. Military limitations to maintain peace. Everything designed to create the largest possible harvest with the least possible resistance. And the founding races? We discovered the truth too late to stop it, but early enough to resist. We fought back. But we were no match for beings who had been perfecting this process across countless galaxies. In the end, we made a bargain. The crystalline structures pulsed with sad light. We agreed to become the administrators of the system, to guide other species into compliance, in exchange for the preservation of a small part of ourselves. We became the shepherds for our own flock, ensuring that the harvest would be peaceful and complete when the time came. How long do we have? Chen asked. The harvest cycle is 2 million years. The last harvest was that long ago. Our sensors have detected the first scout ships in the void beyond the galactic edge. The main fleet will arrive within 10 years. Chen nodded slowly. And you've been keeping all the species of the galaxy docile and defenseless, ready for slaughter. We had no choice. To resist would have meant the destruction of everything. At least this way, some portion of galactic civilization would survive in the Harvester's collections. But you're wrong, Chen said firmly. There is another choice. She activated a device she had brought with her. New holographic displays filled the chamber, showing human technology, weapons, ships, unlike anything in Council records. My species found predecessor ruins on Mars. Not your ruins. The ruins of another species that faced the Harvesters 2 million years ago. They left us more than warnings. They left us weapons. The crystalline beings pulsed with sudden interest. The predecessors tried to fight. They failed. They failed because they fought alone. Because they kept their knowledge secret until it was too late. Because by the time they decided to resist, every other species in the galaxy had already been integrated into the Harvester's system. Chen's images showed human colonies scattered across nearby space, each one armed with technology that merged predecessor weapons with human innovation. We've spent the last 50 years preparing. Not just humans, but the species we've managed to contact in secret, the ones who were willing to listen to the truth instead of comfortable lies. How many? Enough. Not all of them, maybe not even most of them, but enough to make a fight of it. The voices were silent for a long moment. When they spoke again, there was something in their tone that hadn't been there before. Something that might have been hope. You refused integration not to defy us, but to protect the galaxy from the truth until you were ready to act. Yes. If the Council species had learned what was coming, panic would have spread faster than we could prepare them. Most of them have been dependent on the integration system for thousands of years. They've forgotten how to be independent, how to fight, how to make hard choices. If we'd told them the truth, they would have collapsed before the Harvesters even arrived. And now, Now we're ready. Not to win. The harvesters are too powerful for that. But ready to make them pay such a price that they'll think twice before trying this again. Ready to save as many conscious beings as possible. Ready to show the universe that some species don't go quietly into the dark. The crystalline structures pulsed brighter, and for the first time in 30,000 years, the founding races felt something other than resignation. Admiral Chen, they said, what do you need from us? The truth. All of it. Every detail about the harvesters. Their technology. Their plans. And access to the Council's infrastructure. We're going to need every ship, every resource, every being who's willing to fight. And if most of them refuse, if they choose comfortable slavery over dangerous freedom, Chen smiled, and it was the same smile she had worn when facing General Korath's fleet. Then they'll learn something important about humans. We've never been very good at accepting no for an answer. Above them, in the council chambers, emergency sessions were being called. The time for comfortable lies was ending. The time for hard truths was about to begin, and in the dark space between galaxies, ancient ships began to move, drawn by signals that indicated the harvest was almost ready to begin. The great assembly hall of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. 800 species sat in stunned silence as the truth echoed through the chamber. Chancellor Mordoon stood at the center podium, his ancient hands shaking as he finished reading the report that would change everything. The founding races have confirmed what our intelligence teams discovered, he said, his voice heavy with the weight of 50,000 years of lies. The integration protocols were never about peace. They were about preparing us for harvest. A sound went through the crowd, not quite a gasp, not quite a moan. It was the sound of an entire civilization realizing that everything they believed was wrong. Admiral Chen stood beside the Chancellor, no longer an outsider but the only person in the room who had seen this moment coming. Behind her, holographic displays showed the approaching harvester fleet, still years away but growing larger on long-range sensors every day. The choice before us is simple, she said, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the vast hall. We can continue as we are, peaceful, ordered, and doomed. Or we can choose a different path. Counselor Vextar raised one of her scaled hands. Admiral, you're asking us to abandon 50,000 years of civilization. The integration protocols maintain stability across 800 species. Without them, there would be chaos. Yes, Chen agreed. There would be chaos. There would be disagreements, conflicts, species making decisions you don't like. There would be independence. But independence means war, called out a voice from the crowd. Species have different needs, different goals. The protocols prevent conflict. The protocols prevent growth, Chen replied. They prevent progress, innovation, the kind of rapid development we need to survive what's coming. She gestured to the displays showing harvester technology. These beings have been perfecting their craft for millions of years, across thousands of galaxies. The only reason any species has ever survived them is by changing, adapting, becoming something unexpected. You can't do that when you need permission to build a better ship or increase your population. General Korath stood up slowly. The massive warrior looked older than Chen had ever seen him. Admiral, he said, even if we dismantle the integration system, most of our species haven't fought a real war in thousands of years. Our military technologies are limited by the protocols. How can we possibly face an enemy this advanced? The same way every other species in history has faced impossible odds, Chen answered. By learning, by adapting, and by refusing to give up. She activated new displays, showing human technology mixed with predecessor designs. But now, for the first time, she showed the full scope of what they had built. For 50 years, humanity has been preparing for this day. We've reverse-engineered predecessor weapons. We've developed new technologies the harvesters have never seen. We've built ships that can fight and run and hide in ways that break every rule in their handbook. The images showed massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, weapons platforms that could move between systems, and defensive networks spanning dozens of worlds. But we didn't do it alone. Chen continued. 37 species have been working with us in secret. Species that were willing to risk everything for the chance to remain free. A new voice spoke from the crowd. Regent Thexara, of the Vegan Collective. A species that had been council members for over 10,000 years. Admiral, you say 37 species are already preparing to resist. What about the rest of us? What about species that have been integrated for millennia? We don't remember how to be independent. Chen smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, it was a genuinely warm expression. Then you'll learn. Humans will help you. Our allies will help you. Independence isn't something you're born with. It's something you choose, every day, in every decision you make. She turned to address the entire assembly. We're not asking you to become warriors overnight. We're asking you to remember what it feels like to make your own choices. Start small. Build something without asking permission. Explore a system because you're curious about it. Have children because you want them, not because a quota says you can. And if we're not ready when the harvesters arrive, asked another voice, then we'll face them together, ready or not. But we'll face them as free beings making our own choices, not as livestock waiting for slaughter. Chancellor Mordoon stepped forward. Admiral, what exactly are you proposing? The immediate suspension of all integration protocols, Chen said without hesitation. The transfer of military restrictions to individual species control. The sharing of all defensive technologies with any species willing to use them. And the formation of a new kind of alliance, one based on choice rather than compliance. The hall erupted in voices. Species that hadn't argued about anything in centuries were suddenly debating, questioning, demanding answers to questions they'd never thought to ask before. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was exactly what Chen had hoped for. Over the following weeks, the transformation began. Some species, like the Regalians who had been asking questions for months, embraced independence immediately. They began building new ships, exploring new territories, making decisions based on their own needs and desires. Others struggled. The Centauran hegemony, integrated for over 20,000 years, could barely function without detailed protocols telling them what to do. Their leaders sent daily requests for guidance, until Chen finally told them, "Stop asking us what to do. Start asking yourselves what you want to do." The humans shared everything: weapons designs, defensive strategies, industrial techniques that could turn entire moons into shipbuilding facilities in a matter of months. But more than that, they shared something the galaxy had almost forgotten: the willingness to make hard choices and accept the consequences. Not every species chose freedom. The Zephyrian Collective, peaceful traders who had never known conflict, decided they preferred the certainty of integration to the chaos of independence. They withdrew to their core worlds, maintaining the old protocols and hoping the harvesters would honor their compliance. Chen didn't try to force them. Freedom includes the right to choose slavery, she told the council. We'll defend them anyway, because that's what free people do. 9 months after the truth was revealed, the new alliance was taking shape. It wasn't the clean, organized structure of the old council. It was a mess of competing interests, passionate arguments, and species learning to work together without anyone telling them how. It was beautiful. The first joint defense exercise was a disaster. Ships from 40 different species, each with their own tactics and technologies, trying to coordinate a response to simulated harvester attacks. Communications failed. Friendly fire incidents occurred. And 3 separate species commanders tried to give orders to the entire fleet at the same time. But they learned, they adapted, they tried again, and did better. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of the new alliance headquarters, watching the latest exercise unfold on tactical displays. The fleet movements were still ragged, but they were improving. More importantly, they were creative, unpredictable, constantly changing. The harvesters would not find the galaxy they expected. Admiral, called her aide, a young human officer named Rodriguez. We're getting the latest reports from the deep space monitors. What do they show? The harvester advanced scouts have entered the Galactic Edge. Main fleet arrival estimated at 18 months. Chen nodded. It was sooner than they'd hoped, but not unexpected. Send word to all Alliance members. It's time for the final phase. Across the galaxy, species that had spent centuries following rules were about to face the ultimate test of independence. Some would succeed, some would fail, but all of them would face it as free beings making their own choices. In the old council chamber, now converted into the Alliance Coordination Center, representatives from over 200 species gathered for what might be their final strategic meeting. They came not as subjects following protocols, but as allies choosing to stand together. Chen looked out over the assembled beings. Creatures of metal and flesh, gas and crystal, energy and matter. Each one different. Each one free to leave at any time. Each one choosing to stay and fight. 6 months ago, she told them, your species lived in a galaxy where every major decision was made for you. Where your populations, your industries, your very thoughts were managed by systems designed to make you perfect prey. She activated a display showing the approaching harvester fleet, massive beyond comprehension, carrying the collected consciousness of 1,000 galaxies. In 18 months, those systems would have betrayed you completely. You would have been harvested peacefully, efficiently, with no idea what was happening until it was too late. The display changed, showing Alliance defense networks, mobile fleets, and weapons platforms scattered throughout the galaxy. Instead, you chose something different. You chose chaos over order. You chose uncertainty over security. You chose the right to make your own mistakes over the safety of having someone else make your choices. She looked around the room at faces that showed determination mixed with fear, hope mixed with desperation. In 18 months, we're going to show the harvesters something they've never seen before. A galaxy that says no. A civilization that chooses to fight rather than submit. People who value their freedom more than their lives. She paused, thinking of all the species throughout galactic history who had faced this choice and chosen compliance. All the civilizations that had trusted in the promise of peace and prosperity, right up until the moment they stopped being able to think. Some things are too important to negotiate. Some choices can only be yes or no. Today, tomorrow, and for every day until the harvesters are driven back into the void, we choose to remain ourselves. The representatives stood as one. Not because protocol demanded it, but because they chose to honor the moment. In 18 months, many of them would be dead. But they would die as free beings defending their right to exist. Admiral Chen smiled as she watched them file out to return to their worlds, their fleets, their people. Humanity had given the galaxy many gifts over the past year. Weapons, technology, strategies for survival. But the greatest gift was the simplest. The reminder that sometimes the most important word in the universe was a simple, stubborn, absolutely final no. The harvesters were coming. The galaxy was ready.